Welcome to the Wooper Club League Season 15 Week 8 recap and power rankings. This is the final week of the regular season. That means the playoff picture is finally here and in view. Did the things get much easier or did they get much more complicated? I'm your host, IllLogic, coach of the Buffalo Bouffalant. I'm usually joined by my co-host, Steve Jug of the Waterdeep Bobbfets, but he is not here. Yeah, I had to miss our usual session of recording the power rankings and recap because I was on vacation, and now that I am back, Steve is gone, so it is just me. I figured it would be important and valuable to be able to go over this now, possibly to recap a thing for a play-in week if necessary. The fact that this video exists in the first place should tell you all you need to know. Remember that we do not have any transactions to go over, so we can get right into the recaps and the playoff picture here. Remember, going into Week 8, we have 5 teams to determine the fates of many. Whatever a majority of the 4 and 3 teams do, the Close Combat Club, Waterdeep Bobbfets, Buffalo Bouffalant, Akron Agrons, and Chillin' GUs will determine if the cutoff to playoffs is 5 and 3 or 4 and 4. I thought about swapping around recaps potentially, but honestly, the way things played out was plenty dramatic enough. So we're going to start off our recaps with the first match of the week. The Corviknight Clobbers, who already have a spot secured, facing off against the Close Combat Club, who have to bring their government-mandated Skuntank and Torcat to their Week 8 match to fulfill the benchwarming clause. Can they pull it out? And it's going to be, unfortunately for them, a no. The Clobbers hand the first of our 4 and 3 teams a loss 4-0, and you could tell which way this was going to go on turn 1. Skuntank swaps out into Iron Treads, expecting the electric move with the choice specs Heatwave from Zapdos, echoing the club MVP immediately brutal. Back to Skuntank, Overquill Tank, Superfang to Torracat on Spikes, Overquill to Prim on Parting Shot into Brute Bonnet, Flip Turn out into Overquill again to eat the Spore. Brute Bonnet to Torn, who nasty plots up as Overquill. The one-turn sleep, Life Orb Gunk Shot, bringing Torn down to just 3, and then Bleak Windstorm misses as another Gunk Shot lands. Sheesh. Torracat gets some chip, eats another Gunk Shot, and Party Shot out into Skuntank. Tusk taking the talk to the knockoff there. Enam in. Finally some justice. A Stone Edge misses, and Draining Kiss does so much, but Torracat sacked to the next one. Brute Bonnet in, but 2 failed Sucker Punches that gets toxic by Overquill, but at least a Gunk Shot finally misses as it goes down, but Prim can easily revenge that. Enam in, and 2 Moonblasts just KO Nagglestack. Zapdos T-Bolt does a ton. Mystical Fire not doing enough back. T-Bolt chunks the Skuntank 2, and Knock plus Sucker cannot KO. The Clobbers do grab this one. That's a 0-1 for the 4 and 3s. Next match, the Waterdeep Bobbfets are another 4 and 3 team that need a win to guarantee a spot, but they're going against another 5 and 2 team in the Terrifier Heatwave. Steve has a few things going against him here, especially the curse from the end of last video, so can he pull it out? As much as I'd love to talk about this one, it is our match of the week, as the Bobbfets cannot clutch it out against the curse. Against the Heatwave, falling 1-0. Crazy back and forth, some crazy work around the Decidueye of all things, both teams playing well around Trick Room. Finally, a great match for the Chenpao, but crazy power and speed of Deoxys and Weavile are too much. And be sure to check this one out as the match of the week on this very channel, hosted by Michael of the Route 1 Burbs, who we'll get to in just a little bit. Great match to go over, especially as a Week 8 match. The Bobbfets also fall to 4 and 4. That clinches it for the other 4 and 3s, but are they all getting in at 5 and 3, or will the 4 and 4s still make it? Next attempt of the 4 and 3s will be my Buffalo Bouffalant going against the 6 and 1 Calgary Corviknights. My last matchup against them was my worst played match in multiple seasons, but at 6 and 1, even with a government mandated Dedenne for the Corviknights, can I redeem myself? The answer is going to be yes. The Bouffalant clutching out a 2-0 win in another great match. Turn 1, the -1 Cinderace U-turn does over half to Crocodile, and Bisharp on EQ doing 95%. Ew! Rotom can in the next one, of course. Volt switching out of Florges back to Cinder. Iron Head into Volcanion does absolutely nothing, so on to Latios, but Florges back in on the double. Very good. Moonblast does a quarter into Cinder, willing to tank an Iron Head this time as it stays in, but Cinder had Gunk Shot the whole time. That's a KO for the Rabbit. Crook in for revenge. Iron Hands tanks the knockoff easily, and EQ does about half to Volcanion. Willow out into Latios, shouldn't matter. Dragon Dance, oh, maybe it did. Calm Mind 2? Oh, what? Dragon Pulse finishes off the Volcanion. Is that it? No, Dragon Pulse with the Sucker Punch to stop the +1/+1/+1/+1 Latios, and out into Terra Fairy. Rotom, Dedenne barely tanks the Terra Blast into Typhlosion on Nuzzle to expose the Scarf into Dedenne, but no paralysis. Nice cloak as it tanks another Flame Charge, finishing off the mouse. Barraskewda in Aqua Jet KOs, revealing the Choice Band. Rotom back in, safely clicking Terra Blast a couple times, barely tanking 2 Aqua Jets to KO the fish. Crook into KO the Lawnmower, then Cinder into Revenge Crook, but up 3-1 isn't necessarily safe against Dragapult. Bisharp in. Costat Berry, hello. Ironhead goes first. Flinch! That's going to stop the D-Dance setup as Bolt is forced to Terra-Fighting Terra Blast for the KO, but Cinder has been scarfed, so it's a quick double edge after tanking Sucker Punch to finish the job. The Bouffalant with another big win. Score 1 for the 4 and 3s. Next match, Akron Agrons are our next 4-3 team, and they've got the Route 1 Burbs, who are 3-4 in a win and in game for them. The Agrons may be a little less motivated to grab the win, but they sure played well. In an even closer game than our match of the week, the Agrons barely hold on and win, eliminating the Burbs and getting us to very dangerous territory regarding the Wobbuffets and CCC. Turn 1, the government-mandated Haunter's Shadow Ball does less than half to Mesper each, and T-Wave back to Paralyze is big. Pelipper tanks Psychic, another T-Wave to Paralyze that, and U-Turn into Scizor, whose U-Turn does KO Mesprit. A nice Scarf. Bundle versus Gastrodon. Freeze Dry tanked with Yachi Berry, and Mirror Coat KO's back. Wow. Cryo in, but double out to Haunter on Crocolar and a full para back to Gastro, who recovers up on Scizor, U-turn doing half, and to Cryogonal, who can take out the Gastrodon with Freeze Dry. Into Haunter on Lycanroc, SD up, KO's Haunter game. Not while Scizor is around, no. So out into Crocolar and back into Pelipper, and with the Terra Steel and Crocolar, knock off the Eviolite, Pelipper paralyzed, the Roosts and Slackoffs going off. These two could be staring each other for a while. Bit of switching to reset Rain plus Roar, and a Willow into Cryogonal, but these two are back in staring each other down. Oh wait, Surf is doing 47% in the Rain? That's a lot. But finds his chance out into Hydreigon. Tailwind on the U-turn out, activating Weakness Policy. Is that just game? Into Cryogonal, Terrifier, Draco Meteor, misses. Yeah, Haze removes the boost from Hydreigon too, so the Dark Pulse recover up, Freeze Dry doing a lot of damage such that when Tailwind peters out, down goes Hydreigon. Lycanroc back in, takes a bit from Freeze Dry, and then KO's Cryo at +2. Scizor in, tanks Accelerock with 32% left, and KO's back. And we're back to Crocolar and Pelipper. Sweet. Wait, in the middle there, U-turn out into Scizor. Close combat. That KOs the Terra Steel Crocolar from 76%. Just down to Iron Valiant with the booster in speed. Can the Valiant do it? Pelipper down, but with Rain up, Dreadnought in. It's still outsped by Valiant because of the booster. Focus Blast. Miss. Liquidation brings Valiant low even as it goes down to the next one. It's down to the 32% Scizor versus the 18% Valiant, and Vacuum Wave goes first. The max roll was 31%. It only does 30, and Bullet Punch finishes it off. An unfortunate stretch for the Burbs at the end of the road here. A few percentage points about 3 weeks in a row, separating them from the playoffs. Any one of those going the other way. And now we've hit very interesting territory with the Agrons rising to 5-3. This is it. The Bouffalant and Agrons have won. The Club and Wobbuffets have lost, with just the Chiyus left to play. But first, the match you've all been waiting for. The Kanto Kinglers snagged their second win of the season, this over the Chicago Clods. Rillaboom's knockoff does most of Dusknoir's health, but in Releech Life in return, healing up a good bit into Screamtail's Corviknight Tail wins. Rock's up for Screamtail, but Iron Boulder is in. SD versus Calm Mind, both doing under half to each other, but Boulder is faster after a couple of hits into King Gambit, as both are critically low, and good Sucker Punch will KO Iron Boulder. Corviknight healing up on the Gambit, then U-turn out as Ursaluna is brought below a third, but CC does KO Gambit. Gyarados into Revenge does so. Rotom the answer to pivot out on Bastiodon back to Rillaboom, some more good pivoting. So Dusknoir dodges T-Wave, and Poltergeist does a ton to Rotom. A good Pain Split does help out, but another Poltergeist KOs. But here's Hoopa Unbound. Dark Pulse KO. The government-mandated Murkrow is in, trying to mean look Parasong the Rillaboom, but it had U-turn, so out it goes. Gyarados tanks a hit from Hoopa barely, but Corviknight tanks two and gets Hoopa back in, locked into Psychic, instead KOing the Gyarados. Bastiodon back in, Rillaboom back in. We're seeing the power of this core for the Kinglers as the Monkey KOs Murkrow. And Screamtail too, as it was already very low. Bastiodon misses Meteor Beam, crazy set when paired with 3 physical moves, and Hoopa Unbound back into KO with Dark Pulse. The Kinglers with a good come from behind win. Okay, here's what you wanted. The Boulders are in the same position as the Burbs, trying to sneak into the playoffs with a win, and the Chiyus have already clinched, but could gatekeep up to 5 teams, but do have to bring the Gloom and Dragonair. And the game plan of the Boulders was true. A 4-0 win to send them and a few other teams to the playoffs. The 4-4s are safe. Turn 1, Meow U-turns out of Gloom, and Heatran is immune to Toxic, and Heatran gets off rocks. Meow gets to knock off Glow King on Future Sight and Chilly Reception. Another Dark type in on the government-mandated Hisuian Quillfish, and a great taunt on Gloom into a Toxic on Hammerot. Very nice. Meowscarada tanks a Cecil's Edge, and the follow-up U-turn does KO Hammerot. Heatran versus Boots Dragonite. D-Dance up, but the Will-O-Wisp is good. Dragon Pulse doing damage back. Into Balloon, Grafai on EQ, then an Encore to keep that going. They're very funny, but the Boulders mess up a bit. Substitute, sure, but Goldango breaks the sub and Balloon, only losing its Scarf and have its health in return. Meow in next, but Make It Rain does KO. That is scary. Quaquaval in. Aquastep tanked by Gloom, but into Heatran to wall aside from that strength set. Glow King and Lava Plume doesn't 2-hit KO, but with a burn, it does. Very nice. Dragonair in, D-Dance up, Dragon Pulse almost KOs, but rest up, back to Glow King, but Heatran's just doing too much, back to Dragonair, sack to the monster Heatran, D-Knight back in, it's Inner Focus D-Knight, so no Intimidate from Quillfish, D-Dance roosting it up on crunches, Taunt stops that, D-Knight go down to 3% as EQ finally does KO Quillfish, but does go down to the burn, that monster is gone. Thunderous in, Dark Pulse KOs Glow King, over half to Gloom, who gets off Leech Seed, another Dark Pulse is good, but Strength Sap just heals up Gloom even more, so back into Heatran on Toxic, Lava Plume doing too much damage into 2 at KO, and you already know Heatran's walling Goldango Dango KOing back with Lava Plume. The 4-0 win lets in the Boulders, as well as the Wobbuffets and the club. The 4-3 teams going 2-3 overall, and 4-4 is the cutoff. Our final match to go over, well, Steve did call it. The Cincinnati Incineroar, who have been struggling, need a win over the 6-1 Newport Noctols to make playoffs, so they do it with maybe a little bit of help. Tinkerton gets off Stealth Rock, but turn 2, Metronome, power swap in on Deoxys, into Splash on the rapid spin from Excadrill. But hey, on SD, nice encore. But a nice switch again from Tentacruel, tricks into Choice Scarf with Chandelure, and down goes Chandelure to the Memento. But that means failing in to set up the no retreat. It's time. Deoxys defense, tanks Sun Headbutt, but Megahorn does a ton. Oh, that is a reflect though, but Deoxys does go down. Gouging Fire in, Zen Headbutt misses, Dragon Dance. Zen Headbutt does 10 Dragon Dance, a third Dragon Dance, and a fourth. Heat Crash KOs, and with lefties healing it up, it does not get any better. Dragon Claw KOs for Giraffe and Coolfish. Heat Crash grabs Tinkaton and Furret. Yeah, Gouging Fire is back. Helps the Incineroar up to 4-4, and their very own playoff berth as well. Finally, the Wooper Boopers get the forfeit win over the Miltanks, and the Steamrollers forfeit their match to the Summit County Psyducks, giving the Psyducks their 4th win of the season and a playoff berth for them as well. And that's what happened in Week 8. Crazy, insane, ton of interesting, fun matches to go over there for sure. All again, resulting in a ton of implications for the playoffs, which again we'll go over in just a little bit. But first, we do have the power ranks go over here. The Boopers, hey, last team left at 7-1. They are now by themselves at the very top of the standings at 7-1, continuing to put in the finest work. We'll keep them right there. Noctols, yeah, they did lose to Gouging Fire, but it's tough to put stock in just one Mon sweeping. It's tough to put stock in them whenever they didn't even bring the Regieleki or the Salamence or the Greninja or anything. I don't really have any of my confidence in them wavered at all. So 1 and 2 will stay the same. Even without Steve here, who's able to give it and his input, and I originally pushed back a little bit, I think, on the ordering here of the 3, 4, 5, the Heatwave at 3, the Clobberers at 4, and the Calgary Corviknights at 5. Calgary has been sneakily very good all season. Heatwave Clobbers, I wasn't really too sure on. Strangely enough, looking at all of their quote-unquote real matchups that they had against a lot of these teams here, generally all of them 3 and 2 against other top teams. Very interesting to see how they've all done here. About average, a little bit above average with some key wins against each other, some key losses against each other, not able to, any of them, emerge victorious against the Wooper Boopers. I think the thing that pushes Calgary down beneath the others is a loss to a similar team here. I believe that was week 1. They did fall. I believe that was the Heat Wave there that got them, and then just at the very end here, the Bouffalant. I don't think I'd put that much stock into them being that much worse even after that loss. They had to bring the Dedenne. It was a close 2-0 loss. The Bouffalant are historically strong, but still without a super huge win to hang their hat on. Maybe it's a little tough. 3 and 2, all of them in some real matchups here. I think 3, 4, and 5 are all very close. On that note, too, my Buffalo Bouffalant down at 6. After a couple of very big wins, I could see an argument to move the Bouffalant up, even potentially all the way to 3. That's probably saying a lot coming from me, the coach of the Bouffalant, but a win against the Boopers, the only team to do so. Win against Calgary Corviknights here, and a win in using some. Those sets were fire. I had a lot of fun with that, and beating Greg coming back against that. But losses against the Heatwave and Clobbers and a Burbs team that, as we can see, is no longer in the playoff hunt or mix at all there. Makes it maybe a little bit tough, but historically strong Bouffalant for sure, separating themselves from the other teams potentially on the power rankings here. Be interested to see how that ends up going for my Bouffalant there as we end up 5 and 3. The only discrepancy I had with Steve's list, I did change one thing on here. Steve had the 7 and 8 spots switched up here, had the Agrons down at 8 and the Close Combat Club up at 7. I've been a proponent for the club for a few weeks now. I've been doing my own research on difficulty and strength of schedule. Found out the Close Combat Club had by far the most brutal schedule in the league, and it wasn't all that close. I'm very impressed that the Close Combat Club was able to climb up to a 4 and 4 record to make the playoffs. And they had a real nice win last week, and the week before was pretty nice too there. But I'm not 100% sold there yet. Yes, I understand they had to bring a couple of suboptimal mons. They had a little bit of bad luck there. I'm not 100% sold on the club yet. Oh, come on. Don't worry about that. Nothing to see here yet. The club, great team, great coach. I'm not 100% sold that everything is going the way that they want or need it to quite yet. they've looked good recently here, and they obviously have some quality wins to back up their play. Haven't really dropped to any teams that it would be a shame that they dropped them to. But against those top teams, not doing as well. I think without an awesome record against the top teams that they did have to somehow make their way through, it's a little tough for me to say for sure that they should be at 7 compared to the Agrons, who the most up and down season potentially of all coaches. Yes, the Agrons have been up and down quite a bit. Big win over the Noctowls, right? And some other losses that maybe were a little unacceptable. Boulders, I think, at the time, if I remember right, was not great. But since making those transactions to help bolster their team a little bit, they have looked so much better. I'm putting a little more stock in recent history. I'm putting a little more stock in that Noctowls win, who I think you could still argue is the number 1 team, potentially, based on history. Noctowls have been amazing, incredible in recent history. I have a little more faith in the Agrons to be able to keep that up, which could be a lot of fun to watch. See if we can get that moving. But there are, of course, some other tier 4 teams who could have gone over. Steve's Wobbuffets are notably missing on here. Still looking for some big wins there. They had a great chance to move up in the power rankings. Would have been probably an easy number 7 had they won this past week, but they did not. I don't know. Historically, pretty good team. Not sure what's going on this season. They have a week or two to kind of help convince us that they're going to be all right. Next up, we'll go over the MVP race real quick here. Yes, the Boopers had a 4-for win, but they were able to have a mock match against the Miltanks team to help them out a little bit to make sure that they weren't disqualified entirely for not being able to bring every single Mon. And in that match, yeah, Unamers put in some fine work. You can see the final results here of the MVP race with the Unamers Incarnate finishing off as the regular season MVP, 21-4 plus 17. Absolutely insane. Dragonite, number 2, still able to get another KO there in this last match. Gouging Fire reestablishing itself alongside Ogerpon Wellspring there, tied for 3rd. Though Gouging Fire gets the edge with only 3 times being KO'd. Iron Valiant, Iron Treads, Baxcalibur, the Terra Regieleki, or Chaladon for the Agrons. It doesn't seem like it's shown up that much recently. It's another nice tool. And the Quaquaval helping out Sasbo again as well, rounding out our top 10. Still weird just not to see me on there anywhere. Feels like I always have something. But hey, shout out to these 10 Mons and the work that they put in throughout the regular season. Okay, so here's a full look at the standings. Remember, one more time, the playoffs go to the top 8 teams, plus whoever else has the same record as the number 8 coach, with only 2 teams making it to 5-3. The 8th place coach here, according to differential, the Wobbuffets, 4-4 plus 12, meaning everybody else that is 4-4 gets to make it. That means the Boulders, Combat Club, Chiyus, Incineroar, and Psyducks all make it as well. Wooper Boopers once again up there at the top. We see a little bit of an interesting pile in the middle there too, with the Noctowls and Corviknights falling. They still were not passed up by the Clobbers and Heatwave, just not quite enough there differential-wise to mix those up too much. But that means the Noctowls at 2 and Corviknights at 3 will be avoiding play-in games. Had the Burbs won, the Corviknights actually would have had to play a play-in game as the number 3 seed, which is kind of insane to think about. Bouffalant and Agrons alone at 5 and 3 there in the middle. That means we get some very interesting play-on games. Again, we have to get these teams down to 8. So that means 8 plays 9, 7 plays 10, 6 plays 11, 5 plays 12, and 4 plays 13. Even the Clobbers up there, 6 and 2 plus 13, will have to play a play-in game. And to that end here, we have our schedule. So this is going to be an absolute blast to be able to watch. Once again, the 4 and 13 teams. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. 4 and 13, Corbin Clobber, Summit County Psyducks. I mean, what can I say? Psyducks feel like they have just backed into the playoffs at this point. Minus 10 differential is very funny. So I had a pretty nice start to the season with a couple of pretty good wins, but since then have not really done that much to convince us that their Sun team is all that. Coordinate Clobbers have looked much better as of late, I think. I'm going to give them the nod on this one. Incineroar and Heatwave. Heatwave have been pretty solid and consistent all season. Team doesn't quite look it, and the Incineroar do have the Gouging Fire, which could be a problem. But once again, tough to pick against the Heatwave here. My Bouffalant versus the Chillin' Chiyus. Feels similar to that top one. Bouffalant have had a couple of very nice wins. Chillin' Chiyus seemingly backing into the playoffs, starting off, I believe, 3-0. Very much carried by that Dragonite. We'll see if that can put in work against me. I've historically struggled against the Dragonite in the past. Maybe my worst loss in the league to the Miltanks was mostly due to the Dragonite causing a lot of havoc. That thing is something. Maybe my favorite matchups, though, of the play-in round are these next two, the Agron's Close Combat Club and the Waterdeep Boba Fett's and the Boulder Bulldors. Agron's Club, I went over a good bit as to how close I think they are, but I'm not sure. Club had such a brutal schedule getting there. I could definitely see them winning here. But maybe until proven wrong, the Agrons could do it too. But man, the Agrons have just been struggling in the playoffs here the past several seasons, it feels like. Wonder if they can finally get a little bit off the ground there. Agrons and Club, shout out to them being finalists in Season 9. Did not take home the crown. They're paired together. But Agrons and Club, a lot of good history together. This should be a very fun one. And the Waba Fetts and Bulldors. Waba Fett's still trying to, I don't know, it almost feels like they're still trying to find their footing with a lot of their mons here. Chen Pao put in some great work this past week, but man, it doesn't seem to be the carry that maybe we'd all expected it to be. The Terran Necrozma feels a little hit or miss. Even Boulder is starting to put things together pretty well too. Took a few weeks to really get their team together. A lot of transactions. Frankly, quite often they weren't able to get that big win though either. It'd be tough to pick against the Waba Fett's. Boulders have been pretty hot though recently. And I've had some really nice prep, so we'll have to wait and see what goes on there. So I would say that's going to do it, but once again, we have to acknowledge the power of the curse wheel. Have a little bit different here, right? We don't want a cursed team that's not playing. I mean, that would just be silly and absurd, I think. So I would like to be able to alter the curse wheel a little bit this week. We're looking at the 4 through 13 teams, all the teams that are playing in the play-in round. Let's see if we can maybe curse somebody else. Remember how powerful this is. This curse wheel has been kind of on fire. Tough to find anybody that's going to escape it. Ooh, the number 4, I don't know about that. Again, the Clobbers have been clobbering quite a bit here. Against Summit County Psyducks, I'm not so sure. But maybe, just maybe, depending on how things play out. Hey, I wouldn't mind trying to face them down after the curse goes on them. I wonder if that would be a delayed one as well. Maybe we can double up on them next time if I play them. But hey, that's going to do it for this round of power rankings and recap. We have a big play-in round to go over next time. Again, 5 matches here is the next play-in round, followed by just 4, then 2, then 1. The playoffs are underway. We have a lot to go over still next time. Don't forget to check out the match of the week as well. Don't think we're going to have match of the weeks throughout the playoffs, but there are going to be plenty of great games to go over. Most of them already done. We'll see if this curse was real or not. I guess I should just go start prepping for my play-in match as well. So we'll see you around next time as we go over the play-in matches. See you then.